Hi, boys and girls. This is Ms. Kathy. I'm so happy you've joined me today for another story just for you. The Fallen Wardrobe Fiasco by Kate Hiller. No, I'm not going in. I ran outside to escape from my brother's pestering. Luke followed me outside. It'll be just like the book. You'll step into the wardrobe and then, bam, you'll be transported to a special land. Luke had been reading books about kids, wardrobes, and special lands. He'd decided to pretend to transport me to this special place. We had an antique wardrobe that towered over the living room. Luke must have asked me 100 times to let him shut me inside it. He was starting to get a bit pushy. He grabbed my arm and began to tug me back toward the house. Think about it, Kate. You'll talk to animals you've never even heard of. Luke knew how to tempt me. He had seen me go out into the barnyard to talk to the animals. Just that morning, I'd woken early to visit with the horses and cows. I loved their gentle movements, and they didn't seem to mind listening to my one-sided conversations. I had the feeling that I wasn't the only one who felt lonely way out here on the ranch. Our parents were divorced, and consequently we left the city, our friends, and our mom to visit our dad on the ranch each summer. I dealt with loneliness by talking to the animals. Luke dealt with it by pestering me. My brother was always trying a new experiment or activity, with me as his victim. One time, he'd hooked up an electric fence charger to his science lab door handle. "Kate, come in and see my latest experiment," he called from inside his lab. Why had I been so gullible? I'd grabbed the door handle, and a strong electric shock had coursed through my entire body. The strange sensation had left me speechless, but I'd heard Luke's hysterical laughter from the other side of the door. "Shocking, isn't it?" he'd shrieked. Well, I wasn't going to be gullible this time. I broke away from my brother's grasp and ran toward the barn. All of the animals were out to pasture for the day, so I scampered into the hayloft and hid myself in the shadows. Finally free from my brother, I lay back on the hay and closed my eyes. I thought about his book and the few parts he had read out loud. It all sounded wonderful. It sounded like the perfect cure for loneliness, a land far away with amazing creatures and beautiful sights at every turn. Would my brother be nicer there, I wondered? Would my parents be together and happy again? My aunt had told me once that in heaven there would be no more sorrow or sin. Luke would no longer be a pest. There would also be unimaginable, beautiful sights. Heaven sounded a lot like Luke's book. Maybe I should give in to Luke's simple request, I mumbled. At least it would give me something to do. Maybe he wouldn't be so desperate for my attention if I played along sometimes. I headed toward the house, determined to go along with Luke's antics. I would go into the wardrobe and pretend that I was on heaven's threshold. I opened the door and shouted, "I'm ready for the wardrobe!" "Nah," Luke replied lazily. "I'm on to the next book. Besides, I've decided not to let you read the books after all. If you aren't interested in the wardrobe, I won't waste the books on you." He's trying to make me feel guilty for ignoring him earlier. I won't lose my temper this time, I decided. "Please let me try the wardrobe, Luke." "Seriously?" Luke eyed me suspiciously. "Yes, and hurry it up." I walked over and moved to open the wardrobe. "Wait!" Luke's yell caused me to jump back. "I have to open and close the door," he said ceremoniously. He quickly opened the door and shoved me in. He closed the door behind me, and then I felt him lean against it. "Now, I'm going to shake the wardrobe to make it more like you're going somewhere." The next thing I knew, Luke was rocking the wardrobe back and forth, and I was bouncing around inside. "Stop, Luke! Let me out!" I screamed. He rocked, and his laughter grew. "I'm going to tell Dad!" I let out a final yell. That's when the wardrobe tipped over and slammed onto the floor. I was jolted, but not hurt. I can't believe this, I thought. How did I get into this mess? I was just trying to be a good sister. Then I heard Dad's voice. "What happened?" he asked Luke. "It's Kate's fault," Luke answered. At least he told Dad that I was inside the wardrobe. "Here, help me lift it back up," Dad said. "Kate, we're going to put the wardrobe upright." I positioned myself behind some coats, bracing myself so I wouldn't bump around as they lifted. When the wardrobe was upright, Luke barely opened the door, stuck his head inside, and started to whisper, "Kate, please don't." Then he cried out, "Well, where is she?" "What do you mean, where is she?" Dad asked. He fully opened the door and pushed aside the coats. "She's right here." "Oh." Luke's face turned red. "For a second I thought—" I put my hand on his shoulder. "Just say it, Luke. For a second you thought you'd lost your sister." "Please explain what happened," Dad demanded. "It's a miracle," I said. "I walked into the wardrobe with a mean brother and came out with a caring one. It's like a little glimpse of heaven." Dad and I looked over at Luke, his face covered by a book, and then we all burst out laughing. "Heaven is going to be much better than anything we can even imagine," Dad said at last. I wasn't about to argue with that.
The story you have heard today is from Guide's Greatest Stories, written by various authors and compiled by Randy Fischel, and used with permission from the Pacific Press Publishing Association. If you're interested in any other books published by the Seventh-day Adventist Church, please visit AdventistBookCenter.com or call 1-800-765-6955.
This podcast is a production of the Carolina Conference of the Seventh-day Adventist Church.